getting back to the true catch-up list that I started back in 2018 because I suck at this, and just life gets in the way of many, many things when this channel is involved. We start with Aquaman. Aquaman is directed by well-known horror director James Wan, and brings Arthur Curry, who is played by Jason Momoa, into his first standalone film after his very brief cameo in Batman vs. Superman and his first major showing in Justice League. In this film, we get an understanding of Arthur's origins, and then it brings us to present day, where Princess Mara of the underwater kingdom of Zebel, I think? I don't know, it's some weird-ass name that starts with an X. But anyway, she tells Arthur that the king of Atlantis, his half-brother Orm, seeks to unite all of the underwater kingdoms against the surface world, and she believes that if Arthur himself can find the Trident of Atlan, the greatest king of Atlantis and Arthur's forebear, and show off that Arthur is the true heir to the throne, then a war will not have to occur after all. Before I get into my thoughts on the film, I first want to remind you guys to hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. That one's the most important, or at least for me it is. And a short disclaimer for those of you who are new to the channel. I use a pro and con setup for my reviews, but I usually don't keep the sections separate, but sometimes I also do. I don't know, we'll see as the overall product emerges as we go through this. Anyway, let's get into my review of Aquaman. The first positive that you notice in the overall product is just the film has its own self-awareness. It knows that some of the things that occurs are silly, and some of these things are so over the top. It's to the point where you know that the filmmakers were just having a legitimate good time. It felt more like a cheesy morning cartoon from the 80s. They just throw everything at the screen in a mix of vivid and radiant colors, and really it's the entertainment value from that which is the highlight of the film for me personally, and I think it's just a testament to what James Wan decided to bring to the film, basically making it a mix of that feel that we got from the original Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, just that unadulterated fun. And speaking of vivid and radiant colors, the visual effects in this film are rather stunning. I mean, it's not going to trick you into thinking that places like Atlantis are real, nor were they really trying to make you think that. It was just a beautiful movie with, you know, from a visual perspective, at least. And of course, Jason Momoa is great as Aquaman. I really cannot see anyone else playing this character, or at least set up in the way that this version of the character is. And I was happy because I felt like we didn't get enough of him to enjoy in Justice League, though he did have that one great scene involving the lasso of truth. That one was good. And with this film, he brings a lot of charm to the character, and the physicality of the action sequences. Each action sequence, they all looked a bit unique from each other, and even from some other films due to how the shots were composed. The filmmakers choosing to focus on more wide-angle shots, which is great, especially after seeing so many movies from the past couple of years where all the action sequences are way too close up, so you virtually have no idea what's going on. And luckily that wasn't an issue for me with this film, and Aquaman actually had my favorite action sequences out of any DCEU film, and I think it still stands to this day. The film's pacing tends to falter in some of the slower scenes due to the fact that maybe some scenes aren't structured properly, and even some scenes that are gone through way too quickly, particularly scenes involving Arthur's origin and childhood, so that because of that, the first act is a bit rough, but it does improve as the film goes on, that pacing issue. The narrative is also a bit tedious. It's got this issue of feeling like, okay, we need to go to this place, now we need to go to this place, okay, this clue says we gotta go to this place, and it gets unfocused from what the film should actually be about, and it just focuses on more set pieces, which is nice, but at the same time doesn't work with the story. I know that the opener for this section is a little confusing, just bear with me. Patrick Wilson as King Orm, does a good job, and so because of that, that's a little extra pro in there. I definitely like that he's one of the more recurring actors when it comes to a James Wan production, but I do wish that his character was more fleshed out to the point where he didn't feel like a cliche, one-note villain. However, the conclusion to his story was at least something that I was surprised about, so that's also why I put in the other con as well. I know I'm not perfect. Sometimes a pro and a con just sneaks into the wrong section, and then sometimes it's just more than one. It's kind of confusing, but just my basic point was he was, for the most part, a cliche villain, but also I kind of liked Patrick Wilson's take on him because he was a little over the top. It was just the writing for the character that didn't work as much for me. One of the aspects that I was looking most forward to with this film was the inclusion of Black Manta. Now, as somebody who is a bit of a comic book, or like an avid comic book user, I'm not perfect, I haven't read everything. I had little, I still have little knowledge of the character in the comics, but I always thought he at least looked really cool. So I was looking forward to seeing who he was and what his ability/power set was. Unfortunately, they really underutilize him in this film. I mean, he still looks cool, but he's pushed in the background, and he's saved for a late point in the film, showcasing that he'll be back in the sequel, and it would have absolutely been better if they had just held off on his conclusion in the story and just found a different way to go about things. If they had just kept his thing in the opening and maybe kind of hinted that he was more important down the line and then maybe saved it for a mid-credit scene or a post-credit scene, I think that would have worked better, but I don't know, that's just me. This is my very last point, and this is purely an opinionated thing. You guys would most likely see it as a nitpick, but it's not really for me. I personally think that some things that work in comic books, a cartoon, or the printed page does not work in a live-action form. You either have to omit what does not work, or find a way to take on, what's on those things, comics, cartoons, etc., and then tweak them to see where they work. For instance, I don't like that the CW Batgirl has a comics-accurate look. I don't think it looks great. It looks great in the comics, but I think it looks terrible in live action. I really absolutely hate that outfit. And I don't know, just the addition of the red hair really does not work, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. My opinion is the same for the Aquaman yellow and green spandex suit. Ever since it was shown in the trailers, I have hated the look, and just seeing it show up in this film itself, I still hate it. I've watched the movie a couple of times ever since I first saw it. I can't get over it. It just doesn't look good for it doesn't look good for the live action like set sort of thing. If it worked for you, then I'm happy that it did, but it just did not work for my eyes. Overall, the film is a really fun experience with the direction, the cinematography, the entertainment value, the visuals, and just the performance out of the lead character that's not really brought down too much by the pacing and narrative issues, and then that underutilized villain with big name recognition that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. But anyway, with that, my review ends here. I'm really happy that I'm able to actually begin knocking out these reviews, because I'm not trying to say that these reviews aren't important to me, because they are. Every single one is. But the way that I see it, the quicker I get through these, the quicker I can start moving on to some of the other ones that I haven't, or that I've been putting off for so long. But anyway, with that, my review ends here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, don't forget to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And as always, farewell until the next video, all of you casual moviegoers and movie fans alike, and keep on being awesome.